Thank you for listening to Scandinavian Crimes Podcast. Be sure to check out the episode links and be part of our other social media platforms where you can leave a topic suggestion or even share some of your insights regarding the subject matter of the episode. We will always do our best to provide a well-researched episode, but sometimes due to limited access to information and translation issues, some information can be lost. It is therefore good to do your own research and get a deeper understanding of a case of your own interest. So with that all said, let us start today's episode.
Welcome to Scandinavian Crimes. My name is Devante, and say hello to my lovely co-host, Delila.
Hi.
And on this podcast, we cover famous Scandinavian criminals who made their mark throughout Scandinavian history. So today, we're covering another part 1 and part 2, Blame Delila. This is a very interesting case because it involves murder, but the person we're talking about didn't directly commit the murder. It's more like an incitement of murder in a sense, but we'll get into the details and obviously we'll talk about it in discussion. But on August 2016, Sweden was rattled by a gruesome family tragedy named the Arboga murder. A man was discovered brutally stabbed to death and his wife severely wounded in the summer house near Arboga. Their daughter Johanna was accused of the murder, which is unusual for a mother of 6 with no criminal history. However, the narrative of the infamous Arboga woman doesn't commence with murder, but with an entirely different set of circumstances. So, you already know what to do. Come on, it's the podcast, Grab your snacks, grab your tea. If you're on your way to work, tuck yourself in a little corner on the train or on the bus. And this is a story of Johanna Möller. In June 2016, a 41-year-old woman named Johanna Möller from Eskilstuna was accused of sexually exploiting 2 refugee boys. The news editor at Eskilstuna-Kuriren received this information from an unknown source, and 2 reporters were promptly tasked with investigating the source of the information. They found a video showing Johanna and the boys naked in a bed. A group from Eskilstuna-Kuriren met with the 2 boys, who also provided the video. During the extensive interviews, it was revealed that Johanna had promised to assist with housing and replacement for the boys by having contact with social services to facilitate this as well. What ended up happening was that she sexually exploited the boys by promising them accommodations at their residence. She met the boys through a family business she co-owns, which provides care and housing known as the HVB home. With her influence and network, she could provide help for the boys. The journalists in the investigative team conducted a thorough examination uncovering Johanna's details, including her name, family members, children, and past partners, as well as her business affairs. Upon contacting Johanna, she denied all allegations and instead pointed the finger at her daughter and claimed that it was her in the video. It was later revealed that Johanna had instructed her daughter to lie if questioned about the video. The daughter was deeply upset about this and refused to participate in Johanna's deceitful plan, not wanting to be misrepresented as a prostitute. Eskilstuna-Kuriren released a revealing expose on Johanna, triggering widespread attention and strong reactions nationwide. Eventually, Johanna admitted that she was the individual featured in the video, though she claimed that it was consensual sex. Instead, she files a complaint against the refugee boys for invasive filming and extortion. A former colleague of Johanna, whom we'll refer to as ex-colleague, met the boys and heard about their situation. He advised them to contact their case handlers, but found that the social services were unresponsive to their need for help. The ex-colleague also encouraged the boys to file a police report, which they did to no avail. Consequently, he talked to a caseworker who suggested seeking help from the media to bring attention to their case. This led to the submission of tips to Eskilstuna-Kuriren, setting current events in motion. Magnus, a police investigator, took on the role of handling the case involving the boys. Assigned to probe Johanna's actions, he perceived no significant threat based on the video evidence. As a result, his perspective diverged from that of Eskilstuna-Kuriren, which characterized the situation as involving sexual coercion and exploitation. The police had a different perspective that they worked with instead. Their suspicions centered around the ex-colleague who had advised the boys to approach the medium. According to police findings, the ex-colleague orchestrated the events due to financial discrepancies between himself and Johanna. Allegedly, he convinced the boys to intoxicate Johanna and engage in sexual acts with her, filming the encounter. He then sent the footage to Eskilstuna Curry Rent to seek compensation of some sort, among other motives. The sex tape showing Johanna engaging in sexual activities with the refugee boys has severely impacted the family business, leaving her colleagues disheartened as social services refuse to associate with an unethical enterprise. Despite her alleged sexual exploitations of youths in a particularly vulnerable situation, the police decided to close the case. However, attention soon shifts from the sex tape to a new video revealing that the same boys had been brutally and physically assaulted. This led to a new police investigation, and the boys described the brutality they endured. The two boys had been attacked by 10 individuals in their apartment. They were beaten with pistol butts by armed perpetrators wielding various weapons like knives and sticks. Blood was everywhere, on their faces as well as in their mouths. The assailants were there not only to physically harm the boys, but also confiscate their phones and intimidate them into retracting their complaints. The boys claimed that Johanna had sent these people to retrieve the video from their phones and harm the boys. According to the ex-colleague, Johanna allegedly intimidated people by claiming she had connections in the criminal world and within the police force. He explains that he quickly realized that things were not right with Johanna and sensed negative energies from her as a person. This incident was classified as severe abuse. Although the boys identified 2 out of the 10 assailants present in the apartment, the police investigation yielded no results and was subsequently closed once again. The police stated that numerous claims were made from various sources, which is common during fights and abuse cases. Subsequently, the authorities were unable to ascertain the individual responsibilities, resulting in the closure of the investigation. To give a little background about Johanna grew up in Eskilstuna with her parents and sister, who is 2 years older than Johanna. Her mother worked at a bank and her father was an entrepreneur. When Johanna was young, she was well liked and popular in school, spending most of her time practicing gymnastics. She became a mother for the first time at the age of 18 and soon had 3 children while pursuing a degree in social work at Arboga University. In the autumn of 2015, Johanna resigned from her position at the social services in Eskilstuna. During this time, she ran a family foster care business from her apartment where she lived with her younger twin children. Seeing an opportunity to assist refugees, Johanna ventured into entrepreneurship with a colleague that she knew previously from the municipality. Together, they began to facilitate placements for refugee children, teenagers all across Sweden. The colleague, whom we will refer to as Anna, had previously worked alongside Johanna in the social services department. Despite the success, Anna acknowledges Johanna's tendencies to occasionally cross professional boundaries, becoming overly involved with both foster families and clients. Johanna's financial management was also very lax, despite substantial income expenses often exceeding earnings. She often indulges herself in lavish purchases within a monthly salary of 70,000 Swedish crowns she receives from her new business. While she enjoyed traveling with her family, she and the children also frequented her parents' summer home in Grand Leiden, outside Arboga. Despite her sizable income, her father, Göran, often provided financial assistance. On one occasion, she received a 1 million Swedish crown advance on her inheritance. According to Johanna's sister, their father consistently assisted Johanna financially, often succumbing to her manipulation to fulfill her desires. While her mother also provided support, it was typically within normal reason. The mother hoped Johanna would become more self-reliant, and she frequently challenged Johanna's request for money. Yet the father struggled to deny her request, leading Johanna to favor him over her mother. It became evident that Johanna's upbringing had fostered a sense of entitlement in her, and she was very spoiled as a result. The scandals surrounding the sex tape have severely impacted her finances, and soon she finds herself running out of money. Her mother feels that the support for Johanna has gone on too long, as they face ongoing challenges with her behavior since her teenage years. It wasn't until the year leading up to the Arboga incident that they started doubting the validity of her claims. A conflict arises between Johanna and her parents upon discovering that Johanna is accommodating refugees in the apartment they purchased for her. To make room for the refugee boys in the apartment, Johanna forces her 21-year-old son to move out and relocate. She now resides there with her 3.5-year-old twins. The parents were mad, and a dispute brewed between the daughter and her parents, with the parents exerting pressure on Johanna and urging her to vacate the apartment. During their last encounter, the mother and the daughter found themselves at odds. Johanna later discovers that her parents had the intention to evict her from the apartment and sell the cherished summer home in Grand Leiden. Then suddenly, another startling event unfolds. On August 3rd, 2016, at 22:08, an intruder entered the summer house in Grand Leiden and brutally attacked Johanna's parents, inflicting over 20 stab wounds on each of them. Jurin died of his injuries almost immediately, while miraculously, Johanna's mother survived. Both were assaulted while asleep, and the assailant managed to escape before being identified. Johanna's mother woke up to severe injuries and promptly dialed 1112. And for my American listeners, it's essentially 911. Approximately 25 minutes later, the police and the ambulance eventually reached the scene, providing medical attention to Johanna's mother. With no other individuals present, Johanna's mother becomes a suspect in Jurin's murder. Severely wounded, she was promptly transported to Eskilstuna Hospital for treatment. The following day, the police conduct an initial interrogation with Johanna's mother and ask routine questions, probing whether the couple had any enemies or individuals with a motive to harm them. The only person who matched that description was Johanna, prompting the mother to recount to the police the recent fight they had experienced. Before the night of the murder, Johanna repeatedly inquired about her parents' plans for a house viewing at the summer house. Additionally, she mentioned her intention to visit with her children the day following the murders. The forensic examiner examines the mother's injuries and swiftly concludes that she did not inflict them upon herself. It's not uncommon for suspects to self-inflict injuries to manipulate the police's understanding of events. Hence, the police promptly cleared the mother of suspicion, absolving her from any involvement in the murder. While the mother cleared of suspicion, attention now shifts towards Johanna. The response from the National Forensic Center indicated that a DNA match found under Jurin's nail consisted of a mixture of his DNA and that of another individual. This DNA match corresponds to a young man who's been increasingly seen in Johanna's company, Mohammed Rajabi. The police also received additional evidence supported by Anna. She informed them of the substance resembling chocolate discovered inside of their work vehicle. It ended up being blood smears in different locations on the passenger side of the door. After it was confirmed that the blood matched Jurin's DNA, the police initiate an investigation into Mohammed, a man almost 2 decades younger than Johanna, and subsequently romantically involved with her as well. On December 17, 2015, Johanna and Mohammed crossed paths when they relocated from Eskilstuna and got a place in Johanna's HVB home in Arboga. He sought refuge at Johanna's residence on Christmas Day due to leg discomfort. When Mohammed's health deteriorated abruptly, Johanna suggested that he stay with her instead of returning to the HVB home. Initially, Mohammed declined, preferring to return to the residence. His unfamiliarity with the language also contributed to his reluctance to live with Johanna. However, staff members recommended Mohammed to stay with Johanna, citing the convenience of being closer to Eskilstuna Hospital in case of a health emergency. Thus, their relationship blossomed from the very first evening together. Mohammed has faced considerable hardship before arriving to Arboga. He was openly admitted to struggling with substance abuse. Given his circumstances, he has viewed Johanna as a protector. He was heavily reliant on Johanna, who provided him with the financial assistance, clothing, as well as housing. She significantly improved his standard of living compared to his peers from the shelter in Arboga. With sufficient evidence, both Johanna and Mohammed became suspects and are subject to police surveillance. Yet it came to light that the couple had started making their way to Stockholm-Arlanda Airport. The police felt a sense of urgency to intervene, worrying that they intended to flee the country. Just as the couple was buying tickets and entering the airport terminal at Arlanda, law enforcement apprehended them on August 16, 2016. Following their arrest at Arlanda Airport, Johanna and Mohammed are held in custody for 3 days. As the interrogations failed to produce sufficient evidence, the police released the couple but continued to surveillance them. In a later interview, Johanna disclosed that they sought permission from the police to travel abroad temporarily to process what happened to her parents. Johanna expresses her dismay at the accusation against her regarding the Arboga murders. She asserts that there is no evidence linking them to the crime. Furthermore, she highlights the strong bond she shares with her father, emphasizing his unwavering support throughout her life. Despite undergoing DNA testing, interrogation, and 72 hours of detainment, she felt unfairly treated as though she were a murderer. However, inside the car with Mohammed, Johanna's stance on the murder suspicion takes a different turn. She advises Mohammed to deny all accusations so that they can marry and relocate abroad. Despite their release, they remain under suspicion of murder and attempted murder. Alongside this, questions arise concerning the deaths of Johanna's husband, Aki Pasila. A year prior, in August 2015, at the same address as the summer cottage in Grand Leiden outside of Arboga.
And that's going to be on the second part of this murder case. But either way, this is like Johanna in herself is very interesting. The reason this was there was a lot of things that can kind of showcase her character as a person. Obviously the first part with the refugee boys, where it's a lot of like she kind of switched her story. And first she pointed her finger at her daughter and then telling her daughter to like, you know, say it's her and la la la. And then she admit that, okay, I did it, but it was consensual. And then she like, I feel like she's changing and trying to like gaslight people. And it disappoints me that the police officers didn't see it on the same level as the Eskilstuna Kuriren did. Because they were boys, even though they were refugee boys, which I don't think should matter, they were underage boys. And she have been using them for sex and feeling good about herself. And I hate that she's doing the same thing with Muhammad. And it shows that they are very reliant on her because they don't want to leave Sweden. They don't want to be thrown away. They want to have a home. So they feel like they have to do these things for her. And that puts them in a situation. And then when they ask for help, nobody cares. And that's also something that I wanted to talk about because I think it matters. Because it's a very normal phenomenon that people or refugees like this of color does not always get the help that they need in these types of situations. And it's especially prevalent for those that are immigrant waiting for citizenship. I don't know the scenario for these boys specifically, but I can assume that they didn't get or receive a citizenship yet. And yes, racism is a thing everywhere, and it's also prevalent in the northern Scandinavian parts as well. And I think that also is something that should be considered in these type of scenarios as well.
Since you're taking a pause here.
Yes, my brain was buffering.
I will say one thing about people like this that I always find interesting is that obviously not absolving her behavior at all, but people tend to do this when people, regular, normal people who are not in situations where their back isn't against the wall, don't need their support. So I know for a fact she's taking advantage of people, especially these young boys, sexually, because no grown man probably wanted to deal with her. She was an adult woman. Yeah. Now, obviously, that's not in the story, but this is purely my 2 cents.
I can tell you this, though, regarding that. Okay, You can continue with what I was about to say, because I have stuff.
Yeah, I personally just don't think like a grown man would want to deal with all that she's doing, especially her parents. And even though they're victims in this as well, her parents played a part in her behavior, because unfortunately, we have kids and give them everything they want. They think when they get older, oh, I should get everything I want. Like, how am I not getting everything?
Yeah.
And that entitlement is very real. People think like, oh no, they'll grow out of it. That's a very real thing. And there's a reason why saying no doesn't have to be all the time, but it has to be in situations where they need to understand that money comes because you work, money comes because it's earned, and some things they have to earn, so that way they know not to, expect things out of life, and they have to work for it, and they have to, appreciate it. It gives them a new perspective because they're just children, and then they become adults like this. But I'm pretty sure she had a lot of relationship issues because of her behavior.
She did. Her ex-husbands and boyfriends they were all saying the same things, like, hey, like there was something wrong with her. She had a need of validation, always had to, they basically said the same things. So I think because I guess she wanted attention, and she wanted to feel like she is worth something, I guess. And that's why she basically used these kids, or, underage boys. Another thing that I wanted to talk about regarding the refugee boys, that they had to basically go and they had to connect with media to get help, is another thing that I find is very sad, because that's something that is happening worldwide. Everybody's doing that. As soon as they don't get the help they need from the authorities, they go to media, and then it becomes a wide news report, and then they get the help they need. And it's not an uncommon thing. That's everywhere. That's why everybody's recording now. Everybody's documenting everything, because nobody believes people of color. Especially
in this scenario, because it took place in Sweden, right?
Yeah.
So I don't live there, but at least from what I've seen and heard, some people, especially when it comes to immigrants, there seems to be a very strong dislike for immigrants from very specific countries.
In Europe in general, but it's a thing in Scandinavia as well.
Yeah, I've come to understand there's a hierarchy of immigrants. Obviously, if you're from a certain country where you're European looking, people are far more accepting. But then there's a tier list of, okay, these people are still fine, these people are still fine. And the bottom of the barrel obviously is people of color, people who are Black, Middle Eastern, anything like that. They're the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but in reality, these are still people. But unfortunately, we have this mentality where it's people don't see them as people, just because they're trying to come into a country, and we don't own this planet. All these territories is for us to live, and some people don't see them as people, which is sad.
But to the police defense, though, if we're gonna play the opposite direction, if you look at the video, I've seen parts of it, and it wasn't really anything like physical abuse. And because of the law, and the law doesn't say anything about, you can have sex. It has to be physical, forced physical, rape, where you're getting abusive in a way. And the video wasn't really showing that. And I guess that's why the police was yeah, but there's not any, she didn't hit them or hurt them, therefore it's fine. And I guess, because of that, and because of the law for those type of situations, she has the law with on her side, basically. And I guess, but if you think of the moral aspect of it, I believe that it's completely wrong, and I hope at least that the police thought that as well. But because there's no, there's nothing they could do because of the law, and how the law looks. I'm not completely sure, like paragraph wise, like what the law says, but I know that I've seen cases like this, and yeah.
I just want to say something really quickly. To play devil's advocate to your devil's advocate.
Okay.
I know and I'm pretty sure to some level you would like understand where I'm coming from. When the police, especially in previous cases we covered, when the police like really believe that someone did something, like they'll do just about anything. They'll do illegal stuff if they feel like someone really did something. So I think
you think that they should have tried harder.
They didn't really care because, like, let's be honest, we've talked about cases where the detective or someone who's over the case or police was like, I really feel like it's this person. And like, that they really, then again, we don't have every bit of information. There could have been someone who was really passionate.
They did think that it was the ex-colleague's fault. And that's what I hate about it. I'm like, why did you do that? Because I can give you this hint though. The ex-colleague is coming from, he's not white. He's not from Sweden. He has a different background. And that's why I was like, so they have proof, and then they just speculate that the ex-colleague forced the kids to intoxicate her, and they just came up with a lot of assumptions, and that's why I'm like, why? You have video proof. I don't know, but
it's unfortunately that's what it is over here too in America. People think like, oh my god, Mexicans, they're all criminals. I'm like, you do know like those are some of the hardest working people I've ever met, right? But then people they have assumptions because of their own internal bias. So,
and it's not like we're trying to be political and stuff right now. It's just like, I just can't find any other reason for them to not get help, and for the police to not, continue on the investigation, and also to put the situation on the ex-colleague that was trying to help the kids.
And also, believe it or not, like I said, we're not trying to be political, but also bias, prejudice, and racism actually does affect how people pass laws and investigate things. Because if, let's say you go to a country, whoever when you're listening to this, imagine a scenario, and then we'll go back to what we were talking about. Imagine going somewhere and something happens to you, something bad happens to you, but because of how they feel about you, where you're from, who you are, they don't look into it. Because, and I'm pretty sure every woman could relate to this. Doesn't matter if you're, a white woman, black, doesn't matter. Can you imagine telling someone this happened to me? They don't look into it because of who you are. You didn't have a choice. You were born that way. So, and that's real life. And that happens with people who are from different countries. So just keep that in mind. It's not political, but this is actual things that happen. And this is 2016. This is recent
it's very
history.
Recent,
2016, I was technically considered an adult still. So this is recent for me.
I can say this, if you guys are interested in the topic, there's a lot of research about this, and especially when it comes to like criminology in general, as well with racism. So look that up. It's very interesting. But how do you feel, Devante, about the 10 assaulters that invaded the apartment? And do you think that Johanna was sending them there to retrieve the phone or whatever, or do you think that it was just a coincidence? Because I don't know how I feel about that one.
It's a mixed situation, because personally I don't believe in coincidences that much. There can be situations where like it can be unfortunate, but there's, at least in this, based on the information I have, I'm like, that's not random. 10 men show up. I'm like, what are the chances of 10 individual men deciding on that one day, on that, like, hey, let's do this thing to this very specific person? Right. It would have been different if they like got mugged by one person. Then I probably would have been like, you know what, maybe, because mugging can happen, and usually it's by threat of a knife or a gun. But 10 individuals were able to come together and make the same choice. That is that's not a very common situation in terms of a scenario like this. So I personally believe, based on what we were told in the articles and the information and the story, that's odd.
And I can also believe the ex-colleague, when he said that, oh yeah, Johanna also always threatened people, that, oh, she knew people from the criminal world, la la la. I mean, like, you know, it doesn't sound off to me, because it does seem strange, but I feel like I need more information before I can say anything regarding that one. But
yeah, before I absolutely can make up my mind, I agree. I need more information. But just based off of that, I would just take a stab in the dark, no pun intended.
But how do you feel about the actual Arboga murder? Do you feel like, you know, regarding Muhammad being so dependent on Johanna and like having this relationship with her, again, another proof that I feel like she's like fetishizing, like, she is. She's boys of color or something.
Yeah, it's a fetish a little bit, but I think it's primarily a power dynamic. So once again, which is why you should be listening to the old episodes. I mentioned this about abuse in general, where it's not specifically correlation-wise, it's not specifically tied to a gender. It's related to power dynamic. And so in this case, even though Muhammad probably did have a physical power dynamic, she had a power dynamic over him based on what he needed. She had financial power. She was providing him with a home, with food, with clothes, basically providing him with a necessity, which means she had something over him, which gave her control and allowed her to manipulate and abuse him as well. So that power dynamic, plays a part, because she was taking advantage of someone's situation who needed the help and was like, I can use this to my advantage and get what I want physically, and, you know, get everything she needs from a younger person, because, you know, especially 20 years younger, that's a huge, you know, gap in age.
That's you know, that's why I'm like, why? And I also think about it because, like, she ended up being a mom at 18, which is pretty young here in Sweden. Maybe she felt like failed relationships, you know, I don't know how her mind works right now, or was working back then, but it just felt to me that she probably liked the younger,
she probably like you said, the 18-year-old thing. I think she probably likes that younger guys, like she likes that feeling of younger guys,
feeling
probably.
Young.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about that, like how like, you know, about her mental health, basically. So Johanna has been categorized based on personality traits like narcissism and psychopathy in a book authored by Swedish researchers focusing on offender profiling. So they, based on her behaviors, they think that she's a narcissist. And I just, to me, I don't know, maybe I feel like that's true in a way, but I also feel like she's like can narcissists be manipulative? They can, right?
Yeah, they can be. Yeah, a lot of them can be.
Because like she's super manipulative, but she always wants her way. And obviously, Göran was just a victim. And I don't know why he kept doing it. He was enabling her so much, you know. And I'm so glad that he had the mother as well. Like the mother was trying.
Yeah, the dad was the biggest problem. But the funny thing is, I wouldn't even say she's a talented manipulator, because she was only good at manipulating people who needed her.
Yeah,
but much like you said, her ex-partners, when they didn't need her, they left. So it shows that she's only good at manipulating people who
those are
have no other choice.
They are also the ones that are easiest to manipulate either way. So
exactly. So she's not like a talented, you know, gaslighter or anything like that. She's just someone who, okay, well, no one else wants to deal with me. I'll just deal with people who have no choice but to deal with me. So it just proves a point of how self-centered she is, and that narcissism and all that stuff.
You know, another thing that I thought that was very interesting, that the mom said in an interview that Johanna was supposed to visit them before the murder. So technically, she would find them dead. If it would happen that both that died, Johanna would find them dead and also be the victim. And she would get sympathy and everything, you know, if the mom died as well. So the mom was saying that to the police, like, hey, like, she was supposed to meet us at the day of the murder, or the day after the murder, and if I would have died, nobody would have known, you know, about Johanna and the fight between them and the parents and everything, you know. So I I didn't think about it until I was like, that's actually true. Like, if the mom would die, she would have been this pitied woman, and everybody would have been like, oh my God, we feel so bad for you. Your parents died. And,
right. No, I'm just disagreeing with you. That's all. But I think we should, at least this should be it for part 1 at least.
Yeah, the part 2 is also very interesting.
The part 2 is going to be very juicy. So be sure to tune in for the following week, so that way you can get part 2. And let's end the episode off on the typical note that we usually do, which is food, of course.
I would like to eat some wok, like some stir-fried noodles with some veggies, and I don't know, maybe some meat. I haven't really thought about it.
Let me see. What do I want? I can go for some nice burnt ends, some nice, the pork belly with the salted and,
That sounds really nice, though.
It's super good. Super good. That would be nice.
I like pork belly as well.
Delicious. But, once again, if you guys enjoyed the episode, if you're listening to this on, well, obviously you're listening to this on one of the podcasting platforms, be sure to give us a nice little 4 to 5 star review, depending on the platform. Show us some love, leave us a nice, lovely review, and be sure to come back next week for part 2. Peace out, guys. Bye.
Bye.